A group of 4 Democratic lawmakers arrived in El Salvador Monday to continue to push for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father who remains detained at CICAT, the mega prison, where he was transferred, and what the Trump administration admitted was an administrative error. The delegation was led by Democratic Representatives Yasmin Ansari of Arizona, Maxine Dexter of Oregon, Maxwell Frost of Florida, and Robert Garcia of California. The group spoke from the capital, San Salvador. This is Congressmember Frost.
This isn't just about him. This is also about every single person in the United States. The Constitution applies to all people in our country. Due process applies to all people in our country. It's one of the things that sets our country apart from other places across the entire world. And so we're worried, of course, we demand the release of Abrego Garcia, but we're also worried about our own constituents.
This comes as the relatives of Venezuelan immigrants jailed at the Bluebonnet ICE jail in Texas are fighting for their release after the U.S. Supreme Court temporarily blocked the Trump administration from expelling them to El Salvador's mega prison under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This is the brother of 28-year-old Jonathan Betancourt, one of the men at risk of being sent to CICAT.
My fear is that they might unjustly take him there because my brother is not a criminal. He just has tattoos. He's a barber, and tattoos are an art for young people, as well as coloring their hair. He has no criminal record, neither in Venezuela nor in the United States, thank God.
Meanwhile, a federal judge in Colorado may extend a temporary restraining order preventing Trump officials from sending 2 Venezuelan asylum seekers to El Salvador. The men are currently jailed at the Aurora ICE Processing Center. One of them came to the U.S. fleeing political persecution, while the other left Venezuela after 2 of his relatives were killed by members of the Tren de Aragua gang. But the Trump administration is now accusing them without evidence of being members of that gang. One of the asylum seekers has a single tattoo depicting his niece's name. The other has tattoos that include his mother's name, his birth year, and a character from the board game Monopoly. Here in New York, a group of students and alumni chained themselves to the gates of Columbia University Monday, demanding the release of Palestinian student activists Mahmoud Khalil and Mohsen Madawi. The 2 are in ICE jails, one in Louisiana, the other in Vermont, and fighting deportation proceedings after they helped organize Columbia campus protests in solidarity with Gaza. On Monday, Mahmoud Khalil's wife, Dr. Noor Abdullah, said she'd given birth to the couple's first child in New York while her husband remained imprisoned at the Louisiana jail over 1,000 miles away. ICE denied Khalil's request to be present at the birth. In a statement, Noor Abdullah wrote, quote, "My son and I should not be navigating his first days on earth without Mahmoud. ICE and the Trump administration have stolen these precious moments from our family in an attempt to silence Mahmoud's support for Palestinian freedom," unquote. Noor Abdullah is a U.S. citizen. Mahmoud Khalil is a U.S. green card holder until the Trump administration revoked that green card. Vermont Senator Peter Welch met Monday with detained Columbia student Mohsen Madawi, a green card holder from Palestine who was arrested in Vermont when he appeared for what he was told would be a naturalization test. Ahead of his arrest, Madawi helped lead campus protests against Israel's war on Gaza at Columbia University. Senator Welch, who's calling for Madawi's release, published a brief interview with Madawi he recorded inside the Northwest State Correctional Facility.
I want to tell everyone that I feel so loved and so supported. And I am here in good hands. I am centered, I am clear, I am grounded, and I don't want you to worry about me. I want you to continue working for the democracy of this country and for humanity. The war must stop.
He was sitting next to Senator Welch in the jail as he spoke. A federal judge in Georgia has temporarily ordered the Trump administration to reinstate the visas of at least 133 international students. Judge Victoria Marie Calvert's order would for now block the termination of their student visas while their lawsuit resolves in court. A similar suit challenging Trump's mass cancellation of student visas has also been filed in New Hampshire. The news site Higher Ed Dive reports the Trump administration has so far terminated the visas of more than 1,550 international students, putting them at risk of deportation. Many of them have been targeted for participating in Gaza solidarity protests on campus, while others have had their visas revoked over past minor offenses like traffic infractions. Israel's military has killed more Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. Al Jazeera reports Israeli attacks have killed at least 25 Palestinians since dawn, including 11 people who burned to death inside their home in Khan Yunis after multiple air attacks triggered a fire. Earlier today, the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees denounced Israel's siege of Gaza, which is now in its 51st day. Philippe Lazzarini said nearly 3,000 trucks carrying life-saving aid and basic supplies are prepared to cross into Gaza. He wrote, quote, "Humanitarian aid is being used as a bargaining chip and a weapon of war," unquote. In Sudan, more details have emerged following a rapid support forces attack on North Darfur Zamzam displacement camp last week, with survivors describing mass looting and the burning of homes as bullets rained down on civilians. RSF fighters captured the camp, killing at least 300 people and forcing another 400,000 to flee as they face famine. These are 2 of the survivors.
There were people who died on this road because of thirst and hunger. Some people just died. Now, I don't know what's become of my mother, father, brother, siblings, and my grandmother. I came here with strangers. Thank God, I came with them.
We are in need of everything a human needs, whether flour, rice, pasta, sugar, anything. Also blankets and covers to sleep on. We are sleeping on the bare ground.
RSF fighters have also reportedly placed checkpoints around Zamzam and other displacement camps in Darfur, leaving many without safe shelter or access to food and water. The Trump administration's cuts to U.S. foreign aid have exacerbated the humanitarian catastrophe, pushing thousands of civilians, including children, to the brink of starvation. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signaled he's open to ceasefire negotiations with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. It's the first time since the early stages of Russia's full-scale invasion that Putin has said he's open to bilateral talks with Ukraine. Putin's remarks came after another night of Russian attacks, including drone strikes in the Black Sea port city of Odessa, which reportedly injured 3 people and damaged several residences. The U.S. military is continuing its attacks on Yemen a day after Houthi media reported U.S. strikes killed 12 people in a market in the capital, Sana'a. There were more U.S. attacks reported in recent hours in Sana'a, as well as the island of Kamaran in the Red Sea and in Yemen's central Marib governorate. Houthi fighters claim to have fired on targets in Israel as well as on U.S. aircraft carriers in the Red Sea. President Trump's backing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth after the former Weekend Fox News host shared sensitive information about U.S. plans to strike Yemen in a group chat on the Signal app, this time with his wife and brother. It was the second such scandal in recent weeks. Speaking of the annual White House Easter egg roll, which this year was sponsored by Amazon, YouTube, and Meta, Trump dismissed the reports as fake news and a waste of money. Secretary Hegseth also spoke to reporters, accusing them of spreading lies.
This is where we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story.
The Supreme Court appears poised to uphold the preventive care provision of the Affordable Care Act as justices heard arguments in a key health care case Monday. This comes as the Trump administration is planning to gut public health programs in its new budget, imposing a $40 billion cut to the Health and Human Services Department. The administration's proposal, which must be approved by Congress, would also consolidate a number of health department functions under Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s new Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA. Among the proposed cuts are programs addressing gun violence, youth violence prevention, minority health, and rural health initiatives. Connecticut Democrat Rosa DeLauro warned the Trump administration's proposal would, quote, surrender Americans to preventable disease and premature death, she said. Meanwhile, the National Institutes of Health announced it'll pull federal research funding from universities that have any diversity, equity, and inclusion programs or are involved in boycotts of Israeli companies. Harvard University suing the Trump administration after it froze over $2 billion in federal grants for the Ivy League institution. The freeze came after Harvard refused to comply with the White House's order on eliminating DEI, being involved with admissions at the school, and further suppressing pro-Palestinian protests. Harvard's president, Alan Garber, said the cuts would affect key research on pediatric cancer, veterans' health, infectious disease, as well as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Garber warned, quote, the consequences of the government's overreach will be severe and long-lasting. The Education Department says it'll start garnishing wages and Social Security benefits for student loans that are in default starting May 5th. The policy shift could affect over 5 million borrowers, with another 4 million at risk of being in default in the coming months. It would be the first time the federal government would collect on the loans since repayments were paused in 2020 during the pandemic. The New York Times is reporting the Trump administration soliciting ideas from right-wing think tanks like the Heritage Foundation to help boost the U.S. birth rate. The proposals shared with the White House include a $5,000 cash payment after having a baby, ways to address infertility, and creating a national medal of motherhood for women who have 6 or more children. The so-called pro-natalist movement is supported by Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, who has, 14 or more children. The push comes even as the White House and the Republican Party are weighing cuts to Medicaid, which covers 2 out of 5 U.S. children. Democratic House Whip Catherine Clark responded on social media, quote, this isn't complicated. Number 1, affordable childcare. Number 2, paid family leave. Number 3, stop trying to slash health care for women and kids, unquote. The Vatican's announced the funeral for Pope Francis will take place Saturday in what's expected to be a scaled-down ceremony at his request. The Vatican says Pope Francis's death Monday at the age of 88 was due to a stroke and heart failure. We'll have more on Pope Francis on this Earth Day and his legacy as a champion of the environment after headlines. Back in the United States, a federal judge has issued a preliminary injunction ordering Trump's State Department to allow 6 transgender and non-binary people to obtain U.S. passports with sex designations that match their gender identity. For now, the order only applies to the 6 plaintiffs who plan to file a motion that would extend the protections to all impacted trans and non-binary people. The measure was among a series of anti-trans executive orders issued by President Trump on his first day back in office. The State Department since suspended the processing of passports for people who indicate their sex as X on their applications. In London, thousands of transgender and non-binary people joined by their allies gathered in Parliament Square over the weekend as protests continue following the United Kingdom's unanimous Supreme Court ruling declaring the definition of a woman does not include trans women who will no longer be protected under Britain's Equality Act. This is one of the protesters.
Cis people need to start rallying and understanding that transphobia doesn't just hurt transgender people. They are policing women, they're policing femininity, they're policing how we look, and we can't allow that.
And a clarification to our top headline. The Trump administration now says deported Maryland father Kilmar Abrego Garcia was moved to another prison in El Salvador after he was first held at the notorious CICOT megaprison. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.